All right, welcome back to part 4 of this videos. Hello everybody again, and what we're going to do is basically we're going over the AI agent Remoder Lab 2 Project 1 Financial Advisor AI agent. So I'm sorry, I'm not a really great speaker, so I'm going to try to go as as explanatory as possible, but if I do miss something, then please ping me, post a comment that will make it easier so I can explain it to you. Please post comments on YouTube, on YouTube videos, and on LinkedIn posts, so that we can keep the communication back and forth, and then I can learn from my mistakes and where I need to improve. Please post your feedbacks. I would really appreciate it. Thank you. So, without the further ado, so the first part here, the reason we're actually doing two parts here, as you saw before, what I did is actually, sorry, not two parts, but separate microservices. I mentioned in the previous video that it's the best practice to kind of separate your services into separate microservices, right? So it's going to be much easier decouple and easier to troubleshoot. So what we're doing here, we're actually split our Dockerfile from the original. If you look at the the quick glance videos that I mentioned here, you might see that there's actually these Docker files are not like split into two stages, but this is actually best practice of the security. So what happened is that I actually did a different posted in the LinkedIn post from my previous post. You can find it that the best practices secured Docker images. And one of the things I wanted to make sure is that when we build Docker files, to keep the Docker files secure as secure as possible is very high priority. Especially we live in the day and age when basically AI, the attackers are going to use different methods to attack our containers and images. So what we want to make sure is that we harden our images really well, and we don't rush. So the first part here, the stage, it says build and security audit. So you can see here it's basically this is I'm using as a the Python slim image as a base, and then basically fail fast and small layers. So basically it's doing some like a fast quick layers for checkups, system dependencies for will curl for optional. So basically this part installs all the dependencies that's needed, and then basically we're going slowly down to isolated environments here with using Python, and then upgrading pip here. We're basically upgrading pip and pip audit. So one thing I want to make sure, I actually love this tool here, pip audit. It's actually really cool for auditing the packages. What it does is that it actually allows you to audit your packages, the pip, the dependencies, whatever you use, and it helps you just to make sure that you're using everything, everything good. That's not, that can not be potentially harmful. So copy requirements, and then the next stage we're going to keep going, scroll it down, set this around security audit. This part is basically kind of like a security audit check. And then what we're doing here is that stage 2, minimal runtime. So what I did is that here, you might be asking, what did you do in the first part? Basically, the first part, what I did is that I installed the dependencies, I hardened my my stage, and then the second part, this is where I'm building the app now. So the second part where I'm copying the code to the container, and then trying to run the app. This is what's happening in the second part right here. That's part of the reason I staged it into two. So the first part runs the pip audit, make sure that everything is good, security wise everything looks good. Pip audit found no issues. Actually, there's this really cool comment here, small comment. So, and then I have the stage 2 where basically I'm saying, okay, now it's good. Now I'm ready. Now I can tag this image, and then I can get going and then deploy this into my Docker Compose. That's part of the reason. Basically, we split this into two. So now your question is, for example, if I'm working, on an AI agent, do I need to follow this practice? Yes, you need to. The reason is because we want to build responsible and secured environments. We don't want to just run crazy nuts and just copy paste and then be done with it. That's not gonna, that's not the best practices in systems engineering. What we want to make sure is that we want to build secured environments. We want to build reliable environments. We want to build scalable environments, so that to make sure that everything works as much as good as possible. We don't want to just leave like a half emptied system that's that's really potentially can be like, it's an open door for like a hackers, right? So we wanted to make sure that we hardened as much as possible. Now here's the thing, nothing's going to be 100% possible, 100% beautiful and unique and ideal, but there's going to be always flaws. But the idea is to reduce the flaws as much as possible, and which is really that's the strategy we want to go to, basically reduce the amount of impact. Now, this is the part where the Ollama image, I'm not going to go over this too much. So again, as I mentioned before, if you want the code for this whole setup, please reach out to me. This is part of the course that I teach in person. It's called Master AI Deployment. And that's part of the reason I'm going really quick here on the videos, because giving the code and walking you through this one-to-one on mentoring, this is part of the Master AI Deployment, basically kind of like a boot camp that we have. You can see here Ollama Dockerfile. I separated that out. I'm not going to go into the rest of the files too much. So now, without further ado, let's just quickly go and look at our Docker Compose, because I already spin this up, right? So when I spin this up, when I ran the Docker commands, so for example, if I go back to my clear and then just go back to the Docker Compose command that I ran, I just ran Docker Compose up -d and build. So what happened is that if you see on my, I'm actually, by the way, guys, I'm still using Kiro. It's so cool, a very handy IDE. So if you look on the right side here, start all services background detached mode. So what happened is that when I run the Docker Compose command, actually you can run, one thing I found out really cool is like you don't even need like you don't need the dash between these two commands, but if you want to, you can definitely put it up, but it's totally up to you. But for example, when you're working with the Docker Compose command, so this part, the command that we ran, Docker, the Docker Compose up, it starts all the services. Now if I go to my Docker Compose build up, so if I run this right now, because my services are up, so it's just gonna it's gonna blank it out, so it's not, it's already running. Now you can see here different types of Docker Compose on my right side here on my the AI assistant here, and you can see here different types of logs and everything I can do. So for example, if I come in here once, because I already spin this up, so if I come in here Docker Compose logs, right? So if I type in logs, you can see my logs here. So we can look at the logs, and it just shows us all the logs for the services, right? So this is really beautiful and handy. So for example, I can do this, I can just do Docker logs and then to pipe it to something else, and use cat or awk or like sed, all these different commands, and then just grab whatever I want. The reason I'm telling these things is because of the when you work with the AI agents, this is where you need to use your systems engineering skills. So now we're going to stop here for part 5, because I don't want to drag these too long. Thank you, and I will see you for the part 5 of this video.